Ambassador, when you're dealing with the field of diplomacy, you're dealing with two sides that are usually a distance apart. What do you find to be the biggest challenge of bringing them together?
Frankly, it depends on the culture. And by that I mean if you are able to, let's say, break the ice. When I was dealing and negotiating some kind of treaties with Turkey, there's no way by which I can begin any conversation by just saying a joke. Now, same thing if I'm to deal with Japan or with China. You have to be very objective and in a more of what you can describe as a diplomatic opening statement, which gives actually a lot of understanding to the culture that I'm dealing with, needs to be my opening statement.
So culture is like electricity. You have different voltage in different
Yes.
parts of the world and you have different plugs.
Yes.
Before you make a trip, you try to find out by doing research
Indeed.
what plug works.
Indeed.
What kind of research and what kind of homework needs to be done when you're trying to cross cultural bridges?
I need to read the biographies of those whom I will be negotiating with. I need to know where they have traveled, if they have traveled at all to Egypt, being the country that I'm representing. And I need to understand actually whether they would be accepting to have, let's say, a treaty signed first day or it will take like 3 days. If it's 3 days, that means that I will have to be negotiating slowly but surely during those 3 days. It's the step-by-step approach. Now here you apply, of course, what we describe as public diplomacy. And again, you have to put and use all the effective tools that can really bring us closer to each other. Of course, in my case, it was always more challenging because if they don't know that I am a woman diplomat, they would look at me and say, and where is the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs? And I would say, I am the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. Another challenge, my name. My name in the Arab world is more of a man than a woman. So here again, it was always tricky. And I would try to send messages through, of course, our ambassadors, accredited, that there will be a woman Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs who will be showing up so that I would melt the ice before actually going over. I never had such problems or such challenges, if I may say, in countries in Africa. I never had such challenges in Asia. But the challenges were more really in some of the Arab countries.
So when you're looking at the Arab world, as it's called, most people's perception of what are the conflicts in the Arab world are through the lens of religious difference, whether it is between Muslims and non-Muslims, or even the dynamics within the world of Islam. But you're describing a lot of the misunderstanding being over culture more than religion. How does that play into it?
Now, an advantage being an Egyptian, especially when it comes actually to cultures. The cinema industry in Egypt was very effective in getting the culture of Egypt through to many of the Arab countries. So that was really a way by which we can cross bridges of different cultures. Again, when I'm talking or when we are discussing the Arab world, we have to remember that the Arab world is the MENA countries. We're talking here about North Africa. We're talking about Morocco, Algiers, Libya, Tunisia, and then we go to the GCC countries. Here are the Gulf countries. And that's why, cultures in the Arab world. Egypt has more of what you can describe as pluralistic cultures again. It's not one culture, many cultures. So that always necessitated that I would read again, the biographies of the people I will be meeting. It was always easier when we are to, let's say, sign memos of understanding, of exchange programs, educational programs, or if we are going into interfaith dialogue conferences, because somehow we have, as you know, Al-Azhar University, and we have the Grand Imam of Egypt. And once they know that I was visiting with the Grand Imam of Egypt before my visit to any of the Arab countries, it was really my credentials.
There's a lot of diversity, particularly in the Arab world, and some will say it's actually difference. Difference which seems, in many cases, very hard to reconcile. You've mentioned religion, you've mentioned culture, you can also mention economics. How, as a diplomat, do you bridge these divides?
To bridge what I call really the, not differences, but what I can describe as the ability to understand the phases that the Arab world went through, because of course they are different when it comes actually even to their economic level. It's very important to understand the manner by which each country is really being governed. So if I am to go and to talk actually in the Emirates and try to build relations with the Emirates, my style will be different from the manner by which I'm going to be holding these same negotiations with a country like Morocco. Language matters. And here in Morocco, I have to be very clear the way I articulate every word in Arabic. Sometimes, as a negotiator, I can possibly talk in French. Now, I don't have to do that if I am to carry the same negotiations in a country like Sudan.
How does the language of diplomacy help you understand differences based on religious communities?
Religious communities in the Arab world can be very tricky because, again, when you think of the diversity in the Arab world between Sunnis and Shiites, and now actually we have so many other, I would say, religious groups living over there, it's very important to understand and to give every religious community space and to give them actually their own privilege of being identified. But as a diplomat, we usually deal with states more than religious communities, except, of course, if we are to organize an interfaith program that will bring in all the various religious communities that we need to be reaching out to and understanding what they have and dialoguing with them. So it wouldn't be one-sided.
Diplomacy is intended at its very core to reduce tension and conflict. Currently, there are so many wars of words. How can diplomacy or the tools of diplomacy be used to either reduce this war of words or to shift the focus toward working on projects and cooperation?
Projects and cooperation and reaching out is really the art of diplomacy now. Getting to the hearts of people means that we are able to reach to the underprivileged before really just talking to the elite, or else we would be preaching in the choir. So this is very important and very instrumental if there would be a successful team of negotiators who would like to reconcile differences. And part of diplomacy is how to reconcile the differences without really bringing any of the conflicting messages to emerge while you're really trying to build confidence. Many things can happen, as we call it, behind closed doors. But when we're sitting officially at the table of negotiating, it is the point where we can all agree rather than disagree. This takes a lot of time, patience, and consistency.
Is there a possibility where diplomats can engage with leaders of religious communities that are interested in interfaith engagement? And how can that interaction help bring about greater understanding between communities?
Interaction and I would say engaging the various communities, not only in one country, but across borders. We have done that very successfully, and it's not always just the leaders of the different communities, but you really need to reach some of the grassroots and give platform where the various opinions would be discussed. We've tried that, and it was very successful through the religious groups actually in Egypt, be it actually the churches in Egypt who went on many of the missions with the Grand Imam of Egypt. And we always found that the students' body, when they are represented in any of these building confidence and interfaith dialogue, are usually the most effective because they get out of their comfort zone and they are able to express many of the grievances. Then we get into what we describe as the reconciliation and the healing process.
What's the best way that the diplomatic world can instill or, in fact, help to bring about change when it comes to religious communities seeking to engage with one another?
Building confidence and reaching out without really using glossy words. Saying the truth is always important. And from my experience in the field, and I've been doing that for a very long period of time, during my career, I was able to understand this reconciliation when the Grand Imam of Egypt was with us here in the United States in the first interfaith dialogue, and it was done with the Grand Imam. At that time, he was the chancellor of Al-Azhar University, together with many congregations in the United States, and they were from different states. And in fact, he said, and I quote, "We have an authentic statement, prophetic statement. If you want to reach the people, be compassionate, be caring,